Hello everybody, this is Graeme Anderson, and today I'm going to be looking at Ruins of Mars. The theme in this one is what really intrigued me. There's been an explosion on Mars and all of humanity has come together to get to Mars to see what happened. When we reach there, we find that many civilizations are left in ruins. It's our job to decipher their language and to rediscover their technology, but of course, we're all trying to compete against each other to see who can do it the quickest. Now the main mechanism of this game is fairly simple. Go to a location and activate it based on the tiles below the location. When you're done at the location, you redistribute the tiles before the next player takes their turn. Now it sounds like it's going to be a nice, quick game, but that doesn't always mean that it's going to be fun. So, was this game worth a trip to Mars, or should I hope we just stayed home? Let's get it to the table, see how it's played, and we'll come back with my final thoughts on Ruins of Mars. So here is Ruins of Mars set up for 2 players. The main board is placed in the middle of the table and the 11 action tiles are shuffled and placed 2 under each location with the additional 1 going under the wasteland, and place the die on the wasteland tile as well. The language board is placed to one side and all 3 level cards are shuffled and placed to the right of the cost board. Deal 4 cards face up next to the 4 cost rows. Each player takes a player board and tokens of their color. 5 of your markers go on the language board at the base of each language, and 4 of your cubes are placed on your player board to keep track of your resources. The last cube is placed to one side and will just be used for scoring at the end of the game. Each player is dealt, or may choose, a character card and receives 3 time tokens. The first player is given the rover and the game is ready. The goal of the game is to have the most victory points at the end of the game. There is no in-game scoring, as all scoring is done at the end of the game. You're going to get points for discovery sets, either all the same or all different, of technology cards. Some individual technology cards will give you points at the end of the game. You'll also get points for passing stages on the language track, but you'll lose points at the end of the game for having radiation tokens. The game is played over a number of rounds until one player either has 9 technology cards on their player board, or 4 of the 5 language tracks have been mastered. That is, someone has reached the top spot on the track. On your turn, you'll take the rover and place it at any location. There are no placement rules. You can even place it in the same location as the previous player. Once the rover has been placed, you can spend 2 time units or 2 oxygen resources to move any one action tile from an adjacent location to your current location. But remember that all locations must always have at least 1 action tile below them. Then, if there are any radiation symbols at that location, either at the location or on the tiles below it, take that many tokens and add them to your radiation pool. Next, if you have a wrench bonus on a technology card, or there's a wrench bonus at the site, you can use that. Look at how many wrenches are on the action tiles below your location, and you can activate the wrench bonus that many times. Now all sites will grant you something for wrenches. The laboratories will give you 1 resource of your choice, the workshop will advance you in 1 spot on any language, the dormitory will give you a time token, and the infirmary will let you return a radiation token to the supply. Now the wasteland is the only one that does not give a bonus for wrenches. Instead, you're going to roll the d6 and get a number of time tokens based on the chart of that location. Once you've done the wrench bonus, you activate the main action of the site using the action tokens below. Now there are 2 main actions that you'll be able to take, either to discover resources or decipher the language. For the discover resource action, which looks like this, you will move your resources 1 spot to the right for every icon that shows on the action tiles below the location. Now a star is wild and you can advance any 1 resource for each star. The wrenches are only used when you do the wrench bonuses and are ignored for the resource discovery. If your location has a decipher action, which looks like this, you will move your language markers up 1 space for each matching icon on the action tiles. For this action, the star icon on the action tile has a specific language track and is not wild. If you're able to reach the top space, or the capstone space, of the language track, you have mastered that language, and only 1 player can master each language. But you can only ever master the number of languages equal to the number of level 3 tech cards you currently own, and you can only ever have a maximum of 3 of those. Now once you've taken your main action, you can optionally purchase or replicate 1 tech card. You must pay the cost of the card listed, plus you have to pay oxygen for the level that it's at on the board. If you do not want any of the cards on display, you can also spend 4 oxygen to look through the entire deck and purchase the technology from there. After paying for the technology, you move all the other cards to fill the gap and deal a new card in the top position. There are some restrictions on purchasing cards. You can always buy a level 1 card, but to purchase a level 2 card, you must have reached an A space on 2 of the language tracks. To purchase a level 3 tech, you must have reached an A space on 2 language tracks and a B space on 1 language track. If you have purchased a technology card, you place it on your board. All level 1 cards go on the left, level 2 in the middle, and level 3 on the right. Once the technology card has been placed, it cannot be moved again. To place a level 2 or level 3 card, there does not have to be a lower level card to the left of it. Each technology card will either give you a one-time ability that is triggered as soon as it is purchased, an end-of-game scoring tech, a free ability that can be used once per turn, or an ability that can be used once per turn, but you have to give up a time token to activate the ability. Each card will also have a classification, A, B, C, or D, which will come into play in final scoring. Once you have optionally purchased a tech card, take all of the action tiles under the location where you activated and turn them face down. Shuffle them all up, then place one face up at your current location, then place one on each location to the right of your current location, wrapping around the board until all tiles have been distributed. Then pass the row over to the player on your left and proceed with their turn. The end of the game is triggered when either a player has purchased 9 technology cards or 4 of the 5 languages have been mastered. All players will then take one more turn, then you go into final scoring. Flip the main board over to track points. You'll score points for each language track based on how advanced you are. Then you'll score points for rows of 3 cards. If 3 of the cards in the row are the same classification, you will score 9 points. That is, if they're all A's or all B's, you're going to score 9 points. If all 3 cards are different, you're going to score 6 points. And if you have 3 cards in a row that don't fit either one of those cases, then you're just going to score 3 points. That would be if you have 2 B's and an A, for example. You will score no points if a row has less than 3 cards. Then you're going to score points from any individual technology cards you have in your technology board. And finally, you'll count up your radiation tokens. The player with the most tokens will lose 2 points per token, and all other players will lose 1 point per token. Then, the player with the most points is the winner. Let's get back to see what I thought about Ruins of Mars.
So, theme and components. As I said in the intro, I like this theme. Does it work? I'm going to say kinda. The mechanisms are not tightly tied to the theme, but they did try and work the theme into most aspects of the game. I mean, you need to learn the languages before you can decipher the alien technology. That makes perfect sense to me. Not sure it works the other way around though, that you can only have mastered a language once you have a level 3 tech. And I wish that there was a connection between the language and what type of tech you can buy, but there isn't. So the theme is fun, and it works well, maybe just not as long as you don't look too closely at the theme. So let's go on to the components. You know what? They're mostly good, but some not so good as well. First off, the good. The nice chunky tiles in Rover. They feel nice and solid. They give you cardboard action tiles as well. I just never use them as I really like the wooden ones. Now I do wish they had supplied a bag to mix up the tiles. It's probably not necessary, but whenever I played, I always just had a spare bag and used that. The player resources boards are nice, and I like the cutout areas. The board for your cards it's fine, nothing special. The cards are nice and very easy to read, and the art is really nice all throughout. I keep on saying nice, sorry about that. And now some minor complaints on the game though. I do wish the language board was differently done. It's very hard to tell when someone is covering up the space where the A's and B's are on the board if someone's covering the space. But one of my biggest annoyances is actually the language markers themselves. You're going to have multiple people on the same space on these, especially at the starting one. You could have up to 4 of these guys stacked up on top of each other. They're very, very easy to knock over. And it's a pain to, oh wait, where were you on the track? I was also not a big fan of the radiation tokens. You know, there are 1s and 5s, and the only difference is the number printed on them. I wish the 5s were a different shape or size or something. So when I look at another player's board, I can see how many they have, because knowing that is pretty critical to the end of the game. Now, none of these are game breaking. It's just more annoyances than anything else. So let's go on to the gameplay. As you saw from the overview, the game is relatively simple. You choose a location, you activate it, maybe buy a tech card, then redistribute the tiles. It's nice and straightforward. Now you are constantly manipulating your 2 tracks, your language tracks and your resource tracks. And they're tightly bound to each other, and it works well. Now the game is easy enough to explain, and definitely ramps up as the game goes on, which I really enjoyed. I mean, you start with just concentrating on your 2 tracks, getting resources and moving up on the language track. It's easy. It's when you start to get to buy cards that your options start to open up and how you want to proceed. For example, if you buy several cards that cost a time token, then do you concentrate on going to the wasteland? But if you start going to the wasteland, you could get more radiation tokens than anyone else. Then you need to find ways to get that down. And when you start buying cards, do you go for the ones that give you what you need, right now? Or are you going to make sure that you're only going to be buying ones that go with sets to try and get the most points at the end of the game, because those sets are worth a good chunk of points in final scoring. Now, I really like that you can always spend 4 oxygen and look through the entire deck to make sure you get exactly the card and equipment that you want. All the equipment is listed on the back of the rulebook, which is great. Now, there is some player interaction. Now, it's not direct confrontation. I'm not going to be directly attacking what you've built. But you are racing for the top position on the language track, as only one player can be at the capstone space and really get the most points. And some of those capstone spaces are worth a lot of points. You're also fighting to get the cards you want. Now, there are only 2 cards of each type, but there are 2 of each letter. So there are 4 level 3 A's, for example, and they're split into 2 copies of 2 cards at that level. Now, I did find at the early stages of the game, I really cared about what card I was buying because I needed that, whatever resources, get rid of some goods, whatever. And some of them definitely seemed more useful than others in the early stages. But in the final few rounds, I was always more concerned about, completing my sets. So I just needed to get a level 2 B card, for example, to make sure I had all Bs along that row. But my favorite part of the game, though, is the location selection and the moving of the tiles. Now, often that wasteland spot starts to pile up with the action tiles because it's, the automatic 2 radiation is bad. But at some point, someone's going to pull the trigger. I like weighing up the pros and cons of that space. Having the most radiation tiles at the end of the game is punishing. Losing 2 points versus 1 point per token can make the difference in the game. For example, if I have 10 tokens and you have 11, I lose 10 points, you lose 22. That's a big swing of the game, and that can really make or break the winner of the game. Now for some negatives of the game. First is those radiation tokens. I've seen those many times be the biggest impact on scoring. I like the idea of those tiles, and I like that they are negative points. I do find the doubling of the most maybe a little too punishing. But my actual biggest issue with the game is the game length. The game plays 60 to 90 minutes. And I feel that's just too long for what you're doing. The locations only ever give you one of 2 actions: get resources or move up on the language track. And I like that for the first several games, but I felt the more games I played, the more I wanted the game to be shorter. And I think it's the language tracks. I think I want those to be shorter so you can accelerate the purchasing of level 3 cards and have a tighter, faster game. And for me, that's the big issue that's keeping this game from being a great game. But would I recommend this game? Yeah, no problem there. If you're looking for a lighter, entertaining game, I think this is one you should check out. I like the theme. I like most of the components. I really enjoyed the main mechanism of deciding which location to go to and then redistributing the tiles. I liked the play between the language tracks and the card purchasing. I also liked that there were more choices, were meaningful the further I got into the game. Weighing up the action tiles with the radiation tokens and the location action. I liked that the turns were relatively quick. It's easy to teach and it's quick to get to the table. But I did have some few issues with the components. But my biggest issue is due to the repetitive nature of the limited actions that you're taking. Now, I do wish the game was shorter. I would love to get the same game done in under an hour, even with 4 players. Overall, though, I am going to give this game a 7.5 out of 10 and Dice Tower seal of approval. This is an enjoyable game and one that I would happily sit down and play. But even while I was enjoying my individual actions I'm doing during my gameplay, I will probably be wishing the end of the game was closer than it actually is. But that's it for the moment. Until next time, thanks for watching.